Good morning. It's great to be here. So my wife Valeria and I, in the front row here, we've been missionaries in Odessa, Ukraine for the past 5 years. Missions work is all we want to do. It's all we plan to do. And we do not have a retirement plan because we do not plan to retire. For the past 15 years, I've also worked as an Alaskan fisherman. And this past summer, a fellow fisherman asked me, so if artificial intelligence was invented, should robots be programmed with a tendency towards any particular religion? Well, that's a good question, I said, and after a couple moments reflection, I gave him my answer. Actually, yes, robots should be programmed with a proclivity towards Christianity. Why? Because all that we people do should be done to glorify God. So if in some way robots could serve humanity by helping us further God's glory, then they should be programmed to do that. So if our chief end is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever, how could robots help us do that? Perhaps they could create an algorithm that produce alphabets for people groups without a written language and then produce Bible translations for them within seconds. Or they could smuggle Bibles into North Korea. They could also protect Christians in Muslim countries against persecution, and they could direct parking at mega churches. They could even monitor refreshments at the guest counter. They could be walking concordances or keep a database of every version of our favorite worship songs. All of our decisions and all of our resources in life should be bent towards optimizing the glorification of God. Our time, our money, our family and relationships, our skills, our hobbies and talents, our possessions, our careers, our cars, our clothes, our diets, our health, our ambitions, both big and small, our phones and tablets, and even our mothers. And yes, our robots should all be bent towards helping us optimize the glorification of God in the world. All that we love should be loved for God's sake, helping us to somehow love God more. And missions is a means to make more worshipers that love God in this way. Let's go back to the beginning. God has eternally been an outward being. The Trinity has been perfectly selfless in all of their acts with one another and with mankind. Love, the plan of redemption, the creation of the universe, the seeking out after Adam when he hid at the fall, his communication with the patriarchs, the preservation of the nation of Israel and the communication with Israel through the prophets, the sending of Christ and the sending of the Holy Spirit to the church are all outward motions. God is essentially a fountain at the core of his being, overflowing with all that he is. And the more that we worship him, the more that we become like him, outward beings. So let's look back through history and see real quick how God has been consistently outward in all of his dealings with mankind. He walked with Adam in the Garden of Eden, where God's presence was initially. Later down the road, we find God's presence in the tabernacle, which was another type of Eden. Then we find God's presence in the Holy of Holies in the temple. Later, God's presence would be found in the church through Christ as the head of the church. And now the church has been placed on a mission, an outward mission, to expand the worship of God to all peoples and bring Eden to the ends of the earth. In the book of Revelation, we see a great multitude that no one could number. And they were glorifying the Lamb and singing praises to him. And they were a people from every tribe, every tongue, every language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. Notice the words, every nation, from all tribes, all peoples, and all languages. This is God's heart. This is God's end game. And he invites us all to join him on this mission. The Great Commission is called the Great Commission because it's the Great Commission. There There are no other Bible verses in the Bible called the Great Commission, just this one. Jesus said, "Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey all that I have commanded you." And we see a key here in this text that tells us that this command was not just given to Jesus' apostles, but to the church, to all of us. And that key is the fact that he told his disciples to tell their disciples to obey everything he had commanded. One of those commands here in the Great Commission, to go and make disciples of all nations. In Ukraine, it's not so easy there to plant a church as just renting out a gymnasium, having a really awesome pastor and a good worship band, and inviting people in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, people won't come. Ukrainians have been told for centuries that Protestants and evangelicals are a cult, that they're a sect, so there's a high level of distrust. And dozens, maybe even hundreds of church plants have failed in Ukraine. It's very important there, because of the stereotypes against evangelicals, to find creative ways of connecting with people. But people are not going to listen to you unless they trust you. And they're not going to trust you unless they know you. So we need to do the hard work of spending time with people there and make them our friends. And some of these friendships become discipleship opportunities. And through this, we're building God's church. It doesn't begin with church and then discipleship. It begins with grassroots discipleship and then church. If you visit McDonald's in Ukraine, many days you'll see 8 or so cash registers going at once. Why is this? Because American fast food there is a novelty. We have an innovative vision that will be a total novelty in Ukraine. It does not exist, and that is a gospel-centered, gospel-fueled recreation center bringing hundreds and hundreds of kids in the city to us. So if you walk through the neighborhoods in Ukraine and you look at the basketball courts and the soccer fields, they're really tore up. They're just in terrible condition. The kids love soccer and they love basketball. So if we have a rec center that has actually smooth concrete and not tattered rims and stuff like that, the kids are going to come to us. We'll be able to tutor them, counsel them, do our English clubs, etc. Discipleship doesn't just happen from the pulpit one day a week. That's just a fraction of it. Discipleship happens when we lay our lives down to invest in discipling other people. Discipleship is not learned in a Bible college, in a seminary, or reading a book. That's just a fraction of it. Discipleship happens when we step out and we start doing it. And it involves serving together in the kingdom building work. It involves teaching people how to pray and read their Bible, how to kill sin, how to detect and tear down idols, how to live for God's glory and not their own, and how to disciple others themselves. And it happens when we step out and start doing it. It involves being ready to teach, but not thinking that you have to know everything, have a PhD, or be able to walk on water before you get started. Discipleship involves a lot of prioritizing others before yourself. It involves stepping out of your comfort zone. It involves death to self. And like I said, it happens when we step out and start practicing it. It's not easy. It's not natural at first, but in time, you get better at it, like with any discipline. So we would like to invite you to join us on the mission field. We're looking for some key individuals who would like to join us by serving. And the dynamic there of being an American with good English goes a long ways on the mission field there. And we would also like to invite you to pray for the work. Prayer does more for the work than anything else. And some of us can do all three. We can serve as missionaries, whether that's locally or abroad. We can pray for missionaries, and we can give to missionaries. And for almost all of us, I believe that this is the way that God really intends for us to be living. So we can provide for you opportunities to disciple other people and to grow in this skill in Ukraine. We can teach you about the culture in Ukraine and get you going there as a missionary, but it takes a lot more than that. Missions begins with you and I beholding the beauty of Christ. In 2 Corinthians 3:18, it says, "We all with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another." So as we behold the beauty of Christ, the Holy Spirit is supernaturally transforming us. It happens when we rest in the gospel, behold his beauty, and allow Christ to do his work. And basically, missions begins in the prayer closet, and the rest is just details. So now you're probably wondering, if and when artificial intelligence is invented, will robots be able to be born again? So we promised to cover this in our next talk. Real quick, I just want to go through what our primary needs are. First of all, we need to raise a minimum of $15,000 a month. That may sound like a lot of money, but it's a relatively small amount of money, and that would allow for 5 to 7 full-time staff to oversee and facilitate the recreation center. If you look up Forbes' top 50 nonprofits in the United States, 3 of them are YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and Salvation Army, and they each receive billions upon billions of dollars every year. So $15,000 a month to start something like this in Ukraine is not a lot of money. We would need sports equipment. If anyone happens to have old sports equipment or something that would be good in a rec center they would like to donate, we would greatly appreciate it. We're seeking somebody who could be an executive director. That would basically be someone skilled in grant writing, networking, fundraising, who could head up this organization in the United States while we head up things abroad in Ukraine. So if anyone knows somebody who does that kind of thing for a living and loves Jesus, please let me know, because they're very hard to find. Most people that do that kind of work are non-Christians. We have a couple positions for proactive board members, and those are volunteer. We would love to make new relationships with both short-term and long-term missionaries. So please come and talk to me if that's something that you're interested in any degree. We also have a great need for a van. The other missionaries and churches we work with, nobody has a vehicle that we can move equipment around or move people around. One of my good friends has a BMW, but as you can imagine, fitting a bunch of equipment into a BMW requires magic tricks. So I think that's, and then encouragement and support. Next to finances and prayer, we could really use once in a while somebody writing, and even if it's just one sentence, to say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm praying for you or something, because missionaries work very hard on sending out their updates and staying in touch, and it's far too few times that they hear back from people in the States, and we don't have, we're kind of separated from a lot of things when we're out there on the mission field. So I just wanted to encourage people, if you know any missionaries you get updates from, just to write them and say a prayer for them and let them know that you did so. So real quick, my wife, one more thing. In September, we're launching an awareness campaign called the Miracle Worker Campaign, where people can win these awesome t-shirts that say Miracle Worker. And this is basically an online campaign. It's an easy way for people to get involved and help us spread awareness about the vision. So if you want to be notified about that, just fill out one of these contact forms on the table outside the back door, and we will notify you in September when we launch that campaign. You'll also receive our missionary updates and prayer updates as well. And you'll be put in a bucket, and one person will go home with these 3 wonderful missions-oriented books. And my wife would like to say something real quick for everyone.
I want to thank you for your hospitality, how you welcomed us. It was just incredible to see. It's very nice. We have little gifts for whoever wants it. You can come to the table, talk to us, and get some small present. And just want to invite you to come to Ukraine and see how it is there, and to serve God, maybe short term, maybe long term. God knows. And thank you again.